You were always there, always ready, always reaching out, texting first, checking in. She knew it. She counted on it. And that's exactly why she never feared losing you. Because she believed you'd never walk away. But then, you stopped. You went quiet. You didn't chase. And suddenly, she was watching your stories, liking old posts, appearing out of nowhere. Because when you finally stopped feeding her with your presence, she felt a kind of emptiness she couldn't explain. That's not love. That's ego withdrawal. And it only proves one thing. When you ignore her, that's when she wants you most. If this sounds like you, I made something for you. I created a book that goes far deeper than any video could. It's called The Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men. It's not just advice. It's 2,000 plus years of Stoic wisdom translated into modern action steps to take your power back. If you've been the man who gave too much, waited too long, hurt too deep, this blueprint was made for you. You can grab it right now. It's in the comments. But it won't be available forever. This knowledge is sacred, and to protect it, access is limited. Now let's talk about what happens when you ignore her. Number 1. The reverse psychology of ignoring her. The truth no one wants to admit is that the moment you start pulling away, not to play a game, but because your soul is tired of giving, explaining, waiting, and hurting, she feels it like a slap across her self-importance. And it's not love she suddenly discovers in your absence. It's panic. It's loss of control. It's the unsettling realization that you no longer orbit her emotional gravity. And what once made her feel powerful is now silent. And silence to someone who relied on being chased is unbearable. So she scrambles, not because she's had an epiphany about your worth, but because your distance removes the mirror that made her feel desirable without effort. And now she starts to message you, watch your stories, bump into you on purpose, send empty emojis or late-night hey texts. But it's not out of romance. It's reverse psychology playing out on a primal level, where your absence creates scarcity, and in scarcity, her mind triggers the fear of being unwanted. So she comes back, not to love you, but to repair the reflection of herself that your presence once gave her. And if you don't understand this, you'll fall for it again. You'll think she misses you, you'll go back, you'll chase, and once she has that feeling of control again, she'll go cold, distant, dismissive, because what she really missed wasn't you. It was the version of herself that only existed when you were still emotionally available and painfully loyal. And until you understand this, you will keep mistaking re-entry for rekindling, when in fact, all she's doing is confirming she still holds emotional power over you. And this cycle continues until you wake up and realize the reverse psychology only works when you're willing to walk away, not as a tactic, but as a truth. Because nothing screams high value louder than indifference born from clarity, from growth, from dignity. And when you finally stop playing tug-of-war with someone who's pulling for ego, not intimacy, you'll realize just how deep the game goes, and how liberating it feels when you refuse to play it anymore. Number 2. Emotional detachment equals power. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you're numb or heartless. It means you've matured past the point of emotional slavery, past the urge to explain yourself to someone who only listens to manipulate, past the need to prove your worth to someone who never planned on reciprocating your effort. Because when you detach, you become a man again, not a responder to every emotional bait she throws, not a puppet tied to her moods, not a fixer trying to heal a wound that she uses as leverage. And that is when everything changes. Because your silence is no longer an act, it's a standard. Your boundaries are no longer suggestions. They're laws written by pain, by experience, by years of overgiving and under-receiving. And she will feel it in your tone, in your delayed responses, in your absence from her games. And what she once dismissed as neediness is now a ghost. No more apologies, no more double texts, no more defending yourself in conversations designed to confuse and disempower you. And that shift, that deep calm inside your bones, terrifies her, because she can't move you anymore. She can't summon you with breadcrumbs. She can't measure her worth by your attention. And now she has to sit with herself, without the emotional mirror you once held up. And that is when the pullback becomes power. Not because you've become distant, but because you've become rooted. Rooted in your self-worth, your direction, your truth. And that rootedness radiates strength. It changes how you walk into a room, how you carry silence, how you stare back without the need to fill the void with desperate gestures. And the irony is that now, when you no longer need her, when her approval is irrelevant to your mission, when your energy is reserved for people who bring peace, not problems, that's when she begins to crave you again. But this time, it's too late, because your emotional detachment didn't come from coldness, it came from clarity. And nothing is more powerful than a man who sees clearly, feels fully, but gives selectively. And if you want to live like that, it starts by walking away from anything that asks you to shrink in order to stay, and understanding that your peace, your progress, and your power all begin the moment you no longer react out of fear of losing someone who was perfectly fine with losing you first. Number 3. Detachment creates curiosity. When you detach with intention, not to manipulate, not to trigger jealousy, but because you finally understand that your worth is not determined by someone else's attention span, you create a psychological shift that speaks louder than any confrontation ever could, because people are not wired to obsess over what's always available. They're wired to investigate what suddenly changes, what slips away quietly, what becomes unavailable without explanation. And in relationships, especially when you've been the giver, the fixer, the one holding everything together while she weighed her options, the moment you stop showing up with that same pattern of self-sacrifice, the moment your energy becomes focused on your development, your boundaries, your structure, she feels the loss, not of you, but of the pattern she was feeding off. And this is where curiosity is born, because she was used to the version of you that answered instantly, over-explained everything, and tried too hard to be understood. And now you're not reacting, you're not explaining, you're just working out more, dressing better, showing up online with more discipline, speaking with less need for validation. And while you're doing it for yourself, her brain begins to spiral. Why is he so calm? Why doesn't he reach out? Has he moved on? And this curiosity isn't about you specifically. It's about the disruption of her control narrative. And the best part, you're not acting, you're evolving. And that difference is everything. Because fake detachment always leaks through cracks. But real detachment shows up as peace, as clarity, as focus. And it's felt through your posture, your voice, your pace of life. And the most practical thing you can do to build this kind of detachment is to start by directing your emotional energy inward. Write down everything you've been holding in. List the habits you've let go of because you were too caught up in emotional survival. And begin reintroducing structure to your day. Wake up early, train consistently, cook your own meals, track your goals, build your independence muscle one small task at a time. And the more you honor your time, the more naturally curiosity follows, because you'll stop being emotionally readable, and people who can't read you can't control you. And in that space, you finally realize that the curiosity they develop isn't proof of your value. It's proof that you've stopped proving anything at all. Number 4, you become the mystery she can't solve. You become the mystery not by being vague, but by being whole. Because nothing is more confusing to someone who was used to your emotional dependency than seeing you become emotionally self-sufficient. Because mystery isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to label, hard to place, hard to predict. And when you've spent months or years being an open book in a one-sided dynamic, your sudden self-containment, the way you speak less, react slower, and invest selectively, creates a vacuum of understanding that most people cannot tolerate, especially those who relied on reading your every mood as a way to manage their own self-worth. And now that you've stopped being emotionally traceable, she can't map you out anymore. She can't anticipate your next move, and that uncertainty becomes obsession. Not because she misses your presence, but because she can't define your absence, and practical steps to build this kind of energy start with guarding your emotional transparency. So start today by reducing your online activity, not to hide, but to protect. Stop oversharing your goals with people who've never clapped when you were winning. Stop explaining your progress to people who only get curious when you're distant. And most of all, stop engaging in conversations that go nowhere out of habit or loneliness, because every word you drop into the wrong space is a leak in your frame, and instead, focus on creating a life that doesn't require you to seek approval, one where your schedule is so packed with building skills, finishing tasks, hitting workouts, and deepening your purpose that you genuinely forget to perform for anyone. Because mystery thrives where performance dies, and the less you try to impress, the more intriguing you become, not just to women, but to everyone who once thought they knew you completely. And that mystery becomes a shield, because while they're guessing, you're growing. And the more questions they ask, the more they reveal their emotional dependence on the access they once had to you. So keep it sacred, keep it solid, and understand that you don't need to confuse anyone to become a mystery. You just need to stop being predictable, and nothing is more unpredictable than a man who's finally focused. Number 5. Curiosity turns to obsession. When a woman starts becoming curious about your sudden emotional detachment, it's only a matter of time before that curiosity crosses over into full obsession. And this isn't about manipulation or playing mind games. It's about the psychological chain reaction that begins the moment you stop making her feel like the center of your world and start showing her that you have a world without her. Because obsession is born not from attraction alone, but from the absence of emotional certainty. And nothing fuels a woman's obsession more than a man she can't read. A man who no longer follows the script she relied on. A man who seems to be moving forward with or without her. And if you want to understand how obsession takes root, it starts with the removal of her emotional control. When she sends a message and gets no immediate response. When she posts something and you don't acknowledge it. When she tries to engage you with subtle provocations and you respond with calm or not at all, she doesn't interpret that as disinterest. She interprets it as elevation, as distance she cannot cross. And in that gap, obsession builds brick by brick, thought by thought, because now she's left with only questions, and most women will think in silence before they speak, wondering if they misjudged you, if you're replacing them, if you truly stopped feeling anything. And what turns this curiosity into obsession is the consistency of your self-direction, the quiet confidence you carry, the way you no longer need her validation to feel solid in your skin, and that shift creates a mental loop for her. Every time she checks your feed, hears your name, or sees something that reminds her of your past attention, the gap between what she remembers and what you've now become drives her crazy. And if you want to start building that same energy today, remove every unnecessary access point she has to your life. That means delete conversations that serve no growth. Stop updating people who haven't earned your reality. Unfollow pages that keep you mentally trapped in the past. And most of all, shift your focus from reaction to redirection by setting new physical challenges, pushing your learning curve, investing your time in high-return habits like journaling, high-effort training, or launching that idea you've kept shelved. And by doing this, you're not just making her obsessed, you're creating a path where obsession from others becomes irrelevant, because the new you doesn't chase validation. He builds such depth in his world that curiosity from others becomes inevitable. Number 6. The attraction of silence. The truth is that most men talk too much. They explain their intentions. They try to win her over with clarity, with consistency, with openness. And while all of that can work in healthy dynamics, when you're dealing with someone who's gotten used to your predictable availability, it creates a dynamic where your words become background noise, not impact. And the moment you replace excessive talking with deliberate silence, not as a tactic, but as a boundary, you immediately increase your value in her mind, because she's no longer flooded with your energy. She's no longer being handed emotional reassurance for free. And in that absence, her perception of you starts to change. Because now you're not the guy who's always texting first. You're not over-explaining why you're hurt. You're not trying to fix something she doesn't even admit is broken. Instead, you're composed, you're selective, and you've learned that silence isn't passive, it's powerful. And what makes silence attractive isn't the absence of communication. It's the presence of emotional clarity behind that silence. And if you want to start using this today, begin by cutting your verbal output by half. If you feel the need to explain yourself in 3 paragraphs, say it in 1 sentence, or not at all. If someone disrespects your time, don't argue. Remove your availability. If you're pulled into emotional baiting, stay calm, exit gracefully, and get back to your focus. Because when you do this repeatedly, you teach her, and everyone around you, that you no longer communicate to be understood. You speak only when necessary. And that makes everything you say carry more weight, more authority. And when you combine this energy with real action behind the scenes, building muscle, leveling up your finances, managing your time with discipline, the quiet becomes a symbol of growth, of focus, of a man who's too dialed in to waste time proving himself. And when she starts noticing that you're no longer accessible like before, that you don't explain your whereabouts, that your tone has shifted from pleasing to purposeful, she begins to associate your silence not with distance, but with strength. And that is what creates deep emotional pull. Not the things you say, but the life you live that speaks louder than any word ever could. And the best part is this. Once you embrace this way of living, you no longer use silence to attract anyone. You use it to protect your focus. And in doing so, you become so centered that the right people will naturally be drawn to you. Not because you reached for them, but because your silence revealed you've become the kind of man who no longer has to. Number 7. Reclaiming power through discipline. You don't reclaim power by waiting for her to appreciate what she once overlooked. You reclaim power the day you stop negotiating with yourself, the day you stop saying tomorrow to things you know need to be done today, the day you decide that your life is no longer a reaction to other people's approval, but a reflection of your standards, your work, your structure. Because discipline isn't about restriction, it's about liberation. It's about taking full ownership of how you move, how you think, how you show up when nobody's watching. And when you start stacking small wins consistently, without needing applause, you begin to rebuild the broken foundation that allowed you to tolerate inconsistency, disrespect, and emotional crumbs for so long. And the most direct way to start today is simple. Write down the 3 areas where you're most inconsistent. Maybe it's your fitness, your finances, or your emotional regulation. And assign 1 non-negotiable action to each of them every single day, no matter how small. Because true discipline isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up repeatedly, even when it's boring, even when nobody sees it, even when it feels like nothing is changing. Because every rep, every healthy meal, every minute spent building instead of scrolling, compounds into a version of you who no longer has to chase anyone. And while you're doing this, cut the soft talk, cut the endless complaining, cut the victim narrative that someone else broke you, and understand this. The longer you avoid structure, the longer you remain stuck in cycles of chasing people who don't value you. And the truth is, once you start living with discipline, everything else becomes clearer. Who drains you, who inspires you, who matches your effort, and who's only around when they benefit. And when you live like this, something changes in your energy, in your eyes, in the way you say no without explaining, in the way you walk into rooms, because now you're not seeking balance, you're building it. And people who used to pull you off center will feel it immediately, and whether they stay or go won't matter, because your new level of discipline becomes the filter for who deserves to be in your world. And if you want to build that level of control, start now. Wake up 30 minutes earlier, commit to 20 push-ups a day, cook your own meals for 1 week straight, write down your budget, read 5 pages of a book every morning before your phone touches your hand. And if you do this for just 30 days, you'll no longer be the man who asks, "How do I make her want me again?" You'll be the man who's too focused to care, because your power will no longer be an idea, it will be a habit. Number 8, you become the prize. You become the prize, not when she says you are, not when she comes running back, not when she admits she messed up. You become the prize the moment you stop outsourcing your identity to how others treat you and start building a life that is rooted in such depth, purpose, and peace that any woman, any person, any external source of validation becomes optional, not essential. Because being the prize isn't about arrogance or trying to be desired. It's about creating such a clear sense of direction, a relentless commitment to your own goals, that you no longer bend, shrink, or edit yourself to fit into anyone else's script. And the most practical way to step into this mindset today is to ruthlessly audit every single area of your life where you're still tolerating mediocrity. Ask yourself, am I in shape? Do I respect my time? Am I living like someone I admire? And if the answer is no, don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for clarity. Just start. Start by mastering your appearance, not for vanity but for discipline. Pick clothes that fit well. Keep your space clean. Speak with intention. Maintain eye contact. Learn how to set boundaries without flinching. And most of all, start building something. A skill, a business, a body, a habit. Because when you build, you radiate value. Not just in what you say, but in how you live. And women feel that. People feel that. And the shift happens quietly. You'll notice how the same people who once overlooked you begin to look again. How the same woman who made you feel invisible now starts watching from the sidelines, trying to reconnect. Not because she suddenly values you, but because you've become the type of man who doesn't need her to. And if you want to live in that space permanently, make a list of 5 goals you've been procrastinating on. Break each one into small steps and assign a daily action to them starting today. And each time you complete one, remind yourself that this is what self-worth feels like. Not approval, not chasing, but showing up for yourself consistently. Because the real prize isn't what you attract, it's what you no longer chase. And once you realize that, you'll stop wasting energy trying to convince anyone of your value, and instead start living like someone who already knows it. If you're tired of repeating the same emotional patterns, if you're done being the one who always cares more, if you're ready to become the man no one ever plays again, then ask yourself, how much longer are you willing to suffer silently? How many more nights will you waste overthinking someone who already moved on? What will it cost you to stay the same another year? You don't need more videos. You need a blueprint. That's why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men. It's not just a book. It's the step-by-step code I wish someone handed me years ago. But listen carefully. We're capping the number of downloads. Not for hype, but to protect this knowledge, to keep it powerful, to keep it rare. So don't wait. Click the link in the comments and grab your copy before we shut it down. Like, share, subscribe. so we can keep helping men who are still lost, like you once were. Because this isn't just a video. This is transformation.